Have you ever been sitting around your gaming table? We could really use some atmospheric music and some sound effects right now. Well, have I got a solution for you? Tabletone. Tabletone is a mobile tabletop audio app that makes it easy to create high quality immersive soundscapes for your gaming sessions. You can blend music, ambient sounds, and sound effects in real time to match any scenario, from a tranquil tavern scene to epic boss battles, all at the touch of a button. This app uses an adaptive audio engine and an ever-growing sound library that is 100% human-made audio. That means no generative AI. I've used this app in my gaming sessions and it is great. We can be walking through spooky woods, hearing some eerie sounds, and then when combat starts, with a click of a button, the tension grows with the heart-beating soundtrack and sound effects to go with it. And the best thing is, Tabletone is free to download on the iOS and Android so that you can try it for yourself. It comes with full functionality and a starter content pack so you can begin right away. But if you want to add more sounds and content, then you can use code TONE20 to get 20% off your order in the store app. So take your gaming sessions to the next level with Tabletone.
Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of Rolling Dice and Taking Names. My name is Marty. Typically, you would hear Tony say, "I'm Tony," but Tony was not able to make this session because at last minute he's at some restaurant and said, "Yeah, service is slow." That's Tony. And I hate he's going to miss it because I'm excited about this discussion that we're going to be having tonight. So, for those who've listened to the show for a while, know our history in that we got into tabletop gaming through collectible card games, CCGs, and it happened almost 25 years ago when we got into Lord of the Rings CCG from Decipher. We started in there and then basically just branched out to other CCGs, other tabletop games, and it's because of that's why you're hearing me today, basically. And so, being a big fan of CCGs, during that time, there was a huge growth, a huge spurt in the number of CCGs that were coming out. Well, what we're seeing now is another resurgence of CCGs. And I want to talk about, why? Why is there a resurgence? Are we in a bubble? What's going to happen in the future? And I thought, well, I'm not smart enough to have this conversation. So I have two very special guests. First up, I've got Dan Green, you may know as Main Deck Dan, who is a content creator and CCG caster. And I've also got the owner of my favorite local game store, Mike Benson, and the name of the store is To The Table. Guys, thank you for joining the show.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, just kind of kick things off. Let's go ahead and set a foundation of where you guys are coming from and your gaming history with CCGs, your knowledge of the topic and everything like that. And I want to hear what your favorite CCG is of all time. So Dan, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Dan, Main Deck Dan. YouTube channels, Main Deck. Obviously, I am a massive TCG fan. By the way, also my voice, I'm still recovering from an illness, so I apologize if you're used to watching me and are not hearing my full voice right now. I started, I'm 36 years old and I started playing TCGs when I was 9, so it's been a long ride. A lot of TCGs. I began actually with the Star Wars Decipher TCG. So like you, Marty, a Decipher TCG, but this was the Star Wars customizable card game, and I got some uncut sheets and stuff, collectibles from that I used to have up in one of my previous spaces. But over the years, I have played and judged and just about everything, and I've hit kind of every level of the TCG industry as well. Even had a stint doing playtesting and development for a couple of the card games under Panini Games as well, who had made a small splash in 2014 when they brought back the Dragon Ball Z card game, which was very good bit of nostalgia for a lot of people from my era as well. These days, I am pretty hyper-focused on the Grand Archive TCG and the Star Wars Unlimited TCG. Those are two of my personal favorites. And I hate when anybody puts a gun to my head and forces me to pick my favorite TCG because I work closely with both companies. And so I will just say they are both equally my favorite TCGs right now.
So in the history of everything, those two are your current favorite, basically.
In the history of everything, I actually do think so. Because I think the TCG industry, a lot like the board game industry, stands on the shoulders of giants. And I think in general, design of games has improved by learning from the previous designs of the past. It's not that there aren't things I appreciate and love about games going all the way back to Decipher, Star Wars CCG, but I think today we just have some of the best games on the market in general.
Okay. And Mike, your story.
Yeah, so I started playing the Star Wars, actually, I think another Decipher game. I played the Star Trek TCG when it first came out, and that got me into Magic. Actually, I started playing Magic in, 94, 95, right around there. So, my mom would pick up packs at the local comic shop and bring them home to me. We'd just bag them off her, and I played basically TCGs forever, and then it took a long break. I think starting in 2017, so I played all the way up through there, and came back for the Star Wars card game. Actually, I played it at PAX Unplugged when they were demoing it there, and was like, "Ooh," felt that itch again, and then came back. And actually, that's what inevitably led to me opening the store. But we can talk about that more later. But yeah, Star Wars is pretty good. And then I think out of all of them, I think I'll cop out answer. I kind of like Dan did, but I think mechanically, I think Star Wars is the most sort of distilled out of all of them. I think it's like learned from the mistakes of the past, right? And it makes a lot of very smart decisions. Not all of them leading to the success of the game, but I think like it's made a lot of great design decisions. So I really like playing it. And then I think like Magic will just be in my bones. I've played it for so long that it'll never go away. So.
Sure. So again, for a quick history, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So Magic started in the early 90s, and then all of a sudden there was this new business model. And it's like, oh, wait, so we can have these booster packs that you can open. They're randomized. And from these cards, you can build decks and play games. And everybody said, well, that sounds good. Magic's doing well. I want to jump in on that too. And then from the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, you had a huge amount of CCGs. I went back and looked on a Wikipedia page of a list, and it's like 15 to 20 new ones were just spawning up every single year. Most of them obviously did not make it. And they grabbed every IP they could at that time, trying to make a successful CCG. Some made it, some didn't. And it seemed to be that because of that, there was kind of like everybody just fatigued. I'm done. And it seemed like 2008, 2009, 2010, the CCG market kind of started spinning down. And me personally, that's kind of when it's like, I'm kind of tired of this, which is about the time that Fantasy Flight introduced the living card game. I went, oh, that's cool. No randomized boosters anymore. I know exactly what I'm getting. I'm going to play. And I was into LCGs for quite a while. Unfortunately, that format's not very good for competitive play because you lose a lot of the stuff like the sealed events, draft events that made the game fun. So it's like, all right, well, obviously we've still got the main three. You got Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! They're just going to be mainstays, the evergreens. But then I noticed back in 2019, 2020, this other game popped up, Flesh and Blood. And it was like, oh, wow. A lot of people are talking about this game. And then it just seems like they started dropping. Lorcana was announced. Star Wars Unlimited was announced. I'm probably missing some other big, just recently we had Riftbound that came out. You had One Piece that really came storming through. So we've got this huge resurgence. So my first thing to you guys is, why do you think all of a sudden the market's like just blew up again? What made the market the right time for TCGs to make a comeback?
I'm actually really excited to hear Mike's thoughts as an LGS owner as well. I also work in an LGS. I didn't during that time. I was in clinical research for about a decade of my life. But now with everything I've been doing, I'm back in that space. So I'm a lot more attuned again to kind of what's going on with the retailers behind the scenes. But I know that at the time, you mentioned Flesh and Blood, Marty, and so there are, it's basically a confluence, from my understanding, a confluence of elements that led to a sort of a perfect breeding ground for these TCGs to come up. The one of them that it's maybe actually not the most important one, but it led to the success of games like Flesh and Blood, which then paved the way for a lot of other of these games to be tried, was that Magic the Gathering began to shift its focus very heavily. Games like Flesh and Blood came in with a sort of a specific goal in mind. It was to offer competitive Magic players the experience that Wizards of the Coast was leaving by the wayside as they moved to focusing multiplayer, commander format focused, casual focus for their product lines, for their design, that kind of thing. It's not to say that they don't support competitive play, but they did things in around 2018, I think it was. They dropped the DCI number system, or maybe that's 2022. I think I mixed these up. 2022, they dropped that. By 2018, though, they had sort of completely gutted the PTQ, PPTQ system, whatever they had at the time. They started to make it harder for players to find an inroad to be competitive with the game, and started to reward players less for doing so. And a lot of players were just missing the elements of the game that they fell in love with in the first place from a competitive standpoint. And that Flesh and Blood came, and if you look at Flesh and Blood system even today, it's like a carbon copy of what Magic the Gathering's competitive system was in the 2010 to 2015, 2016 era. It's almost identical to that. So that was one element where games found an opening because Magic was no longer the de facto ruler of all of those things. And then the big thing that you have to mention is that the pandemic caused a huge shift in how a lot of industries were, where the cash flow was, what was going on, and especially the big one was collectibles and like crypto and stuff kind of popping off at the time, led to Pokemon cards becoming highly sought after by people who had a bunch of extra disposable money now. And that created sort of a gigantic advertising impact on the TCG industry, where now a lot of games started to crop up suddenly saying, wow, there's people here who want to put money into card games. This is a great opportunity. And it overall actually created a bigger and more robust market for TCGs than we ever seen. And that's why even still in 2025, we have more people who want to buy than ever. And so games keep coming out and they are not dying off quite as quickly, although there's a lot that are like the Kickstarter random, like whatever. But the bigger ones are lasting a little longer now. Sorry, I talked for a long time. I'd love to hear Mike's thoughts too.
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. I think that Magic always, I think early on, lived by the idea that you could buy a deck of cards and learn how to play it and suddenly be a professional Magic player. And if you look like in all that, the print advertising and stuff that they did during those years, they pushed that super hard. I mean, it was on ESPN. I specifically played in a Nationals that was in at Disney Wild World of Sports, and it was nationally televised. It was on ESPN. I mean, it was huge. And so that was always the dream, right? Is like anybody could just like pick up a card, a deck of cards, learn how to play Magic, and then suddenly you're on the Pro Tour and you're making your living playing Magic. And like, that's not realistic, but that was the idea, right? And they built sort of that whole funnel from Friday Night Magic at your local store to, a regional qualifier called PTQs back in the day to Grand Prix and up through that. And then I think what happened is slowly over time, I think that the Hasbro acquisition was huge, right? And it leads to them looking for like, who do we make money off of? Like, where does the money come from? And I think the MPL started in 2019. That was the big shift in Magic the Gathering's organized play. And I was at the PAX where they started, or not the PAX, the GDC, where they announced that they were going to do that. And so weirdly enough, it was also at the same GDC that they announced Google Stadia. So really humdinger announcements here, all going well and crushing. And so,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was there when that guy got on stage and said, I don't. The Google CEO said, like, I don't play a lot of games, and I don't really know why people buy them, but my daughter really likes them, and that's how he opened his talk. And I was just like, oh boy, okay. But anyway, so I remember talking to them at that panel and having a conversation with them and trying to understand, like, because they basically made an influencer league. They were like, look, like what we want is very few people, and we'll take the highest ranked Magic players, but we're going to base it off of current Pro Tour. So you had to like, there was no rating system anymore. So you had to, get Pro Tour points and participate and do well in those events. And so they compressed it very tight, right? Where now the dream wasn't quite the dream anymore, right? And I think that shift was very concerted, where they said, well, we can't make money off of these people, so like let's have a little exhibition, Savannah Bananas like style. These are the good players that play, and then everybody else is casual. Because I think they found, my guess is they did a bunch of market research and realized like multiplayer, because during that time was about the same time they started making Commander products, right? And Commander was a format that started at a store that I used to play at in Tampa. And the guy that made it, Sheldon Menery, who was like a heavy judge there, he would play with his buddies, his kind of old dude buddies, and a bunch of big bearded dudes like look like me but much grayer hair, and would sit in the back and they would play 5-player multiplayer Magic, right? And that became, over time, it became Commander. It was so popular, it was called Elder Dragon Highlander. It became the multiplayer format for Magic, the de facto one. And they literally were like, well, this is huge. We have to make products for it. And so they started making products for it and they blew up, right? And so you see those two things like sort of overlap, as they realize, oh, well, like here's where the money is. Like these people will buy anything we put out, and we don't even need to rotate it. We can just print stuff, right? And then you see the shift away from their organized play. So immediately all those organized players, those competitive players, they got to go somewhere. And so they tried everything. They tried Lorcana. I mean, you see Marty, you've been in the shop. The guys that play the competitive games, they'll play any game. They don't care what it is. They're going to chase. They want competitive play. They want to play for prizes in an environment that is, cutthroat, and that's what they want to do. But those aren't the people that buy Magic cards anymore. People that buy Magic cards are multiplayer, casual Commander players. So that's what I think you see, that divergence, right? Is like Wizards very clearly said, like, this is where the money is, but our roots are this. Now they've tried to like recapture a little bit of that to middling success, I think, but they're trying, right? They're making an effort. So it's interesting.
Wow, so that's interesting. So both of y'all felt like the part of this resurgence was the fact that Wizards created a vacuum that everybody else started trying to fill itself. Now, I've heard that before, Dan, about Flesh and Blood. I know a lot of former Magic players is like, this is what Magic used to feel like. And I guess, like I said, everybody else kind of saw, and the pandemic, I think, is a good point too. Because I was actually going to bring up just the economic environment. I assume that it's probably it's cheaper to make cards than it is boards and dice and wooden pieces and miniatures. And if you can develop a solid game, you can run that game for years, where tabletop board game publishers or, hey, this game, let's try this one. Okay. Let's try this game. Let's try this game. Sort of deal. So if you find that one thing that you're good at, you can kind of run on it for years. So I wonder if the publisher said, well, maybe instead of making 15 games a year, if we could, Fantasy Flight, it's like, man, we're doing all these board games and stuff like that, but if we just focus on this one card game, could we make it on that? And it seems like Fantasy Flight's pretty much living off unlimited Arkham Horror Marvel Champions right now.
Yeah, I think that I would just be careful about reducing it too much, because there's a crazy amount of costs that go into a TCG that a board game doesn't always share to the same degree. You think about a lot of TCGs these days are releasing sets that are somewhere between 200 to 300 cards, each of which has a unique piece of art, hopefully done by a human. I have my own opinions about a couple of the games in the industry as well. But human-made artwork is expensive. Then you have your organized play costs, which are basically a super inflated marketing budget that you need to have much higher ultimately than you do for a lot of board games, even just to try and take off with. And if you I'm sure a lot of board game publishers are just trying to figure out what's the next Catan, what's the next Ticket to Ride, what can I really get to be my sort of bread and butter game that we can ride on for a while so we can develop until we find the next one. And some amount of marketing absolutely goes into that, and you're trying to show it off at every con you can and everything. But I think off the top of my head, I assume that the budget for most card games who are trying to do competitive play at a serious level is going to dwarf, I think, what a lot of those marketing budgets would go for those TCGs as well. So there are a bunch of steps and a bunch of follow through and a bunch of consistent design. You have to come up with 3 to 4 sets a year, or if you're Magic, I think it's 16 or 17 sets a year at this point. Seriously, it's 7 weeks between sets right now. I do our event schedule at the shop, and it's breakneck, and I can't handle it. I don't know who can, but these, most games these days are 3 to 4 sets a year with maybe 1 or 2 kind of supplementary little products that'll come out, a gift set near the holiday season, that kind of stuff. And that means like your 1,000 to 1,200 pieces of art per year compared to a board game, which is going to have, if it has a lot of cards in it, 40 to 60 pieces of art maybe, and that's it. And then you just kind of publish it from there. So the costs can definitely balloon. But that said, Marty, I want to hit on one thing you talked about. You talked about the economic climate. And we related it to the pandemic and everything. And I think that really led to a lot of the ballooning that we saw happen, that's leading to kind of this current golden age, so to speak, that we're in. And you mentioned it was around 2008, 9, 10 that the last one seemed to die off. And it's really easy to notice that is exactly when the economic recession in the United States hit, in the first place, the most recent one. And that era was, soon after that, a lot of these luxury hobbies were just not really something that people were ready to invest in anymore. And then you saw companies scramble to find, well, what are our new ways we can pay less and have people pay less, and everyone's happy. Like the LCG model was perfect for just trying to give people an experience that was similar, that was lower cost to the company because they don't have to make 300 pieces of artwork. They can get away with just the bare minimum to get the decks out for people to play with. And then everybody just had to buy the one release. And it was a model that really fit well in an economic climate that was very, just very appropriate for it. And board gaming took off a lot then too. A lot of us who were TCG players swapped over to board gaming for a while. I have shelves of board games because I was a serious board gamer for that kind of whole chunk of time. I think it's really hard to deny that there had to be some sort of impact from that, on both ends, the ending of that last era and the beginning of the new one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about organized play, but nobody plays Pokemon. And Pokemon is the driver of, I would say is actually the driver of all of this. Like I would say, 9 out of 10 people that buy Pokemon cards don't play it. They have no idea how to play Pokemon. They've never played organized Pokemon play. So, it's interesting. I think you're dead on. I think the COVID, like Pokemon boomed during COVID. It was huge, right? It was just like the hottest thing imaginable. People were literally running entire Amazon businesses based on arbitraging Pokemon cards from like a Target to Amazon. And it was just like, it's just insanity. And I think that is carried over a lot too, into the casual market. So,
well, I was going to bring this up later, but I guess I'm going to tangent because it's kind of a good little side note. How has Pokemon maintained this momentum to where people just like, I'm not doing it anymore? And then all of a sudden it just tanks. How is it just not tanked after all these years? Is that the demand still that high for these cards, I guess?
What's crazy is if we go back to the era when Magic the Gathering was the most competitive and the biggest game in the market, our local stores, I'm in Fargo, North Dakota, just for context. I'm not in a big city. I'm in a relative, it's an okay city, but it's not big. We had a store with 60 player Friday Night Magics in Fargo, North Dakota during the 2013-14 era, especially. I remember the release of Zendikar. I remember people playing on the floor because we had at midnight 115, 120 players in there just to play the new set, the Return of Fetch Lands, the exciting stuff. Back at that era, our Pokemon sales, and I worked at an LGS then as well, our Pokemon sales were nothing compared to our Magic sales. Magic was the game. It was the driver. And it's that, it's just this timing of everything where Magic gives up its position as the primary competitive game, and then COVID hits and the Pokemon collectors just come out of the woodwork. And it's like a nostalgia thing too. It's a bunch of people hit the age now where they're like, I remember Pokemon when I was a kid and the government just sent me $2,000. I'm going to buy some of these. And we got from that this like complete swap where Pokemon went from being just, a thing that you could buy and collect, and cards of that era are just more rare now because of it, which is kind of interesting. But now they can't print enough Pokemon. It's crazy. We just have created this culture of collecting now over the last 5 years that has really, I don't know how it's maintained as well. We are starting to see a little bit of fall off on some cards, but other ones are still, holding pretty firm, and people are just kind of deciding what they want to collect, I guess, and laying a line in the sand somewhere. But yeah, like you said, Mike, it's 100% now. Pokemon is 9 out of 10 collectors. It's just it's a very different swap though from that period where Magic was king, when your shop had to have Magic or you weren't going to make it. Now your shop better be getting Pokemon from as many distributors as you can, because that's going to get you your bills paid.
Yeah, I think like Pokemon died for quite a while. It was just literally just trash. Like nobody wanted it. It basically crashed like sports cards did, right? And I think it came back because of, I could make the argument, but I think TikTok released in 2016 and then Pokemon immediately got huge. So like, sure, you've got a younger audience that suddenly, is consuming social media content. They're, maybe haven't been fed like that dopamine drip of opening a pack, and like, here's literally, if you think about it, like Pokemon is just gambling for kids. That's all it is, right? Like, so you're just saying like, if you've ever given a kid a iPhone or iOS game that has loot boxes in it and cut them loose and had your credit card attached to it, you'll instantly understand like what a dangerous proposition that is. And I think Pokemon was essentially that. Like you have people, you have kids like consuming TikTok content and they see Pokemon cards and they see people opening Pokemon cards, and immediately like it boomed, right? And then again, just like you said, COVID happens. They're consuming more social media content. It's crazy. We have people come into the shop all the time and purchase cards and go in the back. They will sit at a table. They will hold a phone over top while they open the cards. You don't see that with any other game. Like nobody else does that. You see it with, there is content creators that do that with Magic, but not like Pokemon. The whole community, all of it is just sitting there opening packs, which makes sense because Pokemon holds a sealed premium unlike any other game, right? And what I mean by that is the estimated value of like what a Pokemon card is worth, like all the cards in the booster pack versus what the booster pack is worth. It is so low for Pokemon. You'll have booster packs on the shelf that'll be $7-8 market, and they'll have $1.50 worth of cards on average in them, and they do not care. They will still buy them. So
it's funny you said, because I was going to bring up this anecdote I saw the other day. So we're recording this right after Thanksgiving, and on Black Friday there is a game store that was about 45 minutes from my house. It's a retro video game store. They have a 25% off sale, and I collect retro video games, so I went there. But they also sell a ton of Pokemon. And so I asked the owner, I said, did you have a big line this morning? Oh yeah, long line. And he said it. All of them were here for the discount on the Pokemon. And so in the back of the store, they have a play area. And I saw a guy doing what you were talking about, Mike, had a camera sitting there opening up packs and stuff. But what made me sick to my stomach is after he went through a pack, he just took them and threw them right in the trash can. And it bothered me so much. I'm like, how does the store owner or somebody, or, somebody say, look, give those to a kid, save those and just let people have them. Kids may want to play the game, get them into this hobby and stuff like that. So it just sickened me. The guy just went through a box of cards and was just trashing almost everything he opened.
Yeah, because the value is opening the pack.
Yeah.
That's what I always try to explain, like why people like Pokemon cards and why they're so expensive is because they're not opened. That's the only reason they're worth anything, right? Because if you want to play Pokemon, right, the game itself, which there are people that do play it, it's the best time ever to be playing the game because the cards are incredibly cheap and you can get them for next to nothing. Because once they're open, the value is gone. Outside of like the crazy speculative market around, slabbing the Pokemon cards and like trying to, they'll open a card that's worth $8 and they're like, but if I get a Gem Mint 10, it's worth $800, and which is, value produced from nowhere. But it is wild.
For those who are listening who aren't into the hobby, slabbing means you go get it graded. And obviously a higher graded card is going to be worth a lot more. Dan, you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Pokemon is such a unique part of the industry right now. And one thing that I see a lot is players from other card games who are looking at other card games, judging other card games. I see far too often people looking at a smaller card game, and smaller means anything right now, but I mean like a much smaller card game. And saying, well, this is crazy. Why is this game so expensive to play? Why does it cost so much to build a deck for this game when I could just go to Pokemon and pay $25 and get the deck that just won Worlds? It's so easy. It's so cheap. And Pokemon is the only game in the market that can pull that off because, like Mike said, 9 out of 10 people are not playing the game. They open the cards, they throw away the commons, or sometimes more than that or whatever. But they flood the market with tons of the playable cards because the playable cards are not the single card in the set that on release is going for $700, $800 or whatever. It's not the gold Mega Lucario EX or whatever. It's it's just the regular version of Lucario EX who is $1.50 or I don't know what the current price is, but $5, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not expensive, right? So your deck is going to have like 8 cards in it that are maybe worth $1 to $3 or something, and then a bunch of commons and uncommons and stuff that just doesn't have a price tag on it because people just open so much product on TikTok or whatever and just fill TCG Player with every single card that you could need. And every other card game would, if they could sell as much sealed product as Pokemon did, then maybe they would start to have prices like that, but it's just not a fair comparison. I think people still truly don't understand the difference between the magnitude of sales Pokemon has and the magnitude of production Pokemon has and most other TCGs on the market.
Yeah, you almost have to treat them totally differently. They're completely different beasts. People talk about them in the same breath, but Pokemon is its own. It's like gold.
So we're kind of in this like a real resurgence. So there's a lot of new games out there. So I wanted to ask you, each of you, some games that you feel like that are doing it right, whether it be from gameplay, competitive play, organized play. Which games do you feel like, okay, these guys know what they're doing and they're probably going to be here for a while? And I'll give you a chance to think on that because I want to let people know. I actually have pulled up from Q3 of 2025 what the top product lines were. The best-selling trading card games for Q3 by total dollar values of all sales. This includes singles and sealed. Here are the top 10 from Q3. Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, One Piece, Gundam, which was new, Disney Lorcana, Pokemon Japan, Digimon, Star Wars Unlimited, Flesh and Blood. All right, so that's kind of where we're standing. So I'll start with you, Mike. What is a game or games you feel like, these guys know what they're doing and this is going to be a successful product?
Riftbound. I mean, I think Riftbound has done literally every single thing correct from a retailer perspective, outside of being able to meet demand. But no TCG meets demand if it actually is good. Like Star Wars had the same problem. Every TCG when it releases can't print to demand, but Riftbound actively had organized play before it started. They actively sent stores promotional material before it launched. They just did all the little things that matter. You know, they sent us promotional material. We have like calendars that counted down to release, and they send us promos on time. They, you know, there's a lot of things. I mean, that's just from a small scale, you know, out of the smaller games. I think from a gameplay perspective, I think Riftbound does some really interesting things with multiplayer. That is very interesting, where it does not exclude a player at any point, unlike Magic and some other games where, you know, I think Magic, Commander is huge, but someone inevitably dies in a Commander game, and then they have to sit there for like 45 minutes waiting for the game to end, and that's not very popular, right? Whereas that never happens in Riftbound, due to the way you're counting up, and so nobody ever actually dies in Riftbound. I think they're doing everything right. I think they've done a good job. Star Wars, from a gameplay perspective, is fantastic, and I think plays extremely well. I do think that they have problems on the retail side, like massively. I don't think you can effectively support a game long term where its sealed product is at cost or below 2 weeks after it releases. I think sealed boxes of Secrets of Power were $71 on TCG Player a week and a half after the pre-release. So, I mean, when your cost, I think our cost on Secrets of Power is like $69 a box, you know? So like you're talking after TCG Player fees, you are literally losing money on every box of, you know, I think, Marty, I sold boxes in my store for $50 a box or something like that. So Star Wars has problems from like a product, like getting people to carry it. And I think the people doing it wrong, I mean, Magic is tough. It's tough, you know. It's hard. Like it really. They just release sets too fast. Like you can't release sets at the clip that they are, and you know they told people last year that they were going to slow it down. That this year was like a, you know, an aberration, and they had licensing agreements that they had to fit, and all of these reasons. And don't worry, next year it'll be fine, right? And then they come out and they say, oh, actually next year we've got one more set than this year, which is crazy. It's just crazy. And people can't keep up, right? But again, I think that goes back to Commander players, where they know Commander players purchase every set that comes out regardless, and it never rotates, so they feel confident buying it. And yeah, Magic, it's tough. I mean, it's selling, but I think the last two sets have really struggled as a result. I mean, we've sold them, they've been fine, but they're not what the previous sets were. And I think if they let them breathe, they would have done a lot better. So
I think, Mike, your point about Riftbound is really good. I think it is I think it's a game that is doing a lot of things correct. I think one of the things that surprised me the most about Riftbound, and just for like some context, I guess, the store I work for was, I don't know where we are on the list, but we were one of the highest sales stores, online stores for Riftbound in the country. Definitely, we're up there from our discussions with our distributors, and we had a lot of issues with the allocations, as a lot of people did. So we went. I had a summer. It was. I'm going to be honest. It was one of the most stressful summers of my life. Trying to work with distributors and even talking to folks at Riot and UVS Games directly, working to figure out how to meet allocations, or to meet the demand that we had, or the pre-sales that we had based on the allocations that were coming out. But one of the most incredible things that resulted after we learned that there were going to be at least one more wave, and now we have the confirmation of a third wave coming here soon of product. But the earliest I knew there was going to be a wave 2 within about a month of release, and wave 2 released within a week of release, within days actually of release. They managed to get a full wave of, we had to cart in more product than I've ever seen in my life in one spot. But the amount of product that Riot managed to fast track, and UVS Games managed to fast track is remarkable. And that, to me, that was the big point where it was like, okay, like a lot of games Marty, you were there for Star Wars, right? You remember when Spark of Rebellion sold out, and then they said, don't worry, we have more Spark of Rebellion coming before the holiday, and it was like September or something.
No, it was March. It was March. Yeah.
Oh yeah, true. March. You're right. Oh my God.
So,
yeah, my timelines are all.
Yeah, Star Wars Rebellion released in March, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll have more product to you by the holidays." And I was like,
"The holiday, yeah."
Excuse me, what? What's going on?
It was. I think you're right. Set 3 had released at the point when the reprint finally hit, and it was just far too late. Where Riot did something I've never seen before and managed to get a gigantic second wave out. And there's still players who are trying to get products, so I'm very sympathetic to that as well. It's still impossible to find, but the amount they added really is going to help sustain that momentum that the game needs to really take off. So if there's any game if you can find product for it, or you're looking forward to pre-orders for Spirit Forge or something, that's one of the games right now where I definitely think it's positioning itself well to really become a serious contender for those top 3 spots in the coming years.
Yeah, and so for those who are like, well, Marty, you didn't mention Riftbound on the list. That's because Riftbound was a Q4 release. That's Q3. Guaranteed Riftbound will be top 4, top 3 easily in Q4, I would assume. I guess it depends on how much product they had to sell. So
I think Riftbound has they've got a little bit of a head start too, because it came out in China first, right? So the game existed there, and they didn't plan on releasing it here, and then it did so well that they were like, oh, let's see if maybe we'll print this here, right? And immediately, huge amounts of demand. So like, I think that's what led to them being able to deliver product wise, was like, they were already printing them, right? So they'd already done the thing.
Riftbound deciding not to do a global release initially is still, to me, the craziest thing that I've heard this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they started planning the global release before the Chinese release as well. China released about a month before we did, so a lot of this stuff was already done. It was just as soon as they revealed the game out, they were absolutely inundated with people all around the world saying, great, I can't wait to get this in English. And they were like, well, I guess we should plan on doing that then, which it's League of Legends. I don't get how.
I don't understand it either. It's so wild. Yeah.
I do want to throw one more thing out here though. I think that there are a lot of games on the list, like especially the list you gave, Marty, that are games that we can expect to be around for a long time. It's pretty easy. Companies like Bandai, who's the publisher of Digimon, One Piece, Dragon Ball Super, both Dragon Ball Supers, and now Gundam as well. Like that's a company where I have a pile of my own concerns, but I work in an LGS, and when you work in an LGS, your opinion on Bandai usually shifts a little bit.
1,000. You can see me tight-lipped, like not saying anything.
Well, no,
I'm like, I'm only here so I don't get fined. Like that kind of energy.
It's a free space. I mean, if you got stuff to say, let's hear it. I'm not sponsored by Bandai, so
I mean, I don't carry. I do not sell Bandai in my store. I carry it and immediately flip it on TCG Player. I will not stock it. I will not.
Sure.
We had my one experience with Bandai was I pre-ordered $30,000 of Gundam, right? And I was like, this is going to be our game. This is going to be our game. We're going to do it, right? And then and people are like, are you going to take pre-orders for Gundam? I'm like, I don't know, man. It's Bandai. I'm going to wait till we get actual allocations, right? And they pushed them back. And it was Monday before this stuff was supposed to release. And I got calls from one after another from every single distributor, like, hey, let's talk about Gundam real quick. And I was like, yeah, what are we getting? Nothing. I said, well, nothing. Like one box, I'm thinking like, oh, it's nothing, but it's like a case or 2 cases, right? And we're just going to build up. No, 0, nothing. And I asked why, and they said, well, you haven't run Bandai events before. And I said, well, my store just opened 6 months ago, right? So I can't run Bandai. I haven't, because people also don't know this, is Bandai makes you pre-order all of their games 6 months in advance. Mm-hmm. So you have to order, you're essentially on the hook for 3 sets before you ever receive your first order. So if you're like, ooh, I'm going to order Gundam, and you're going to support Gundam and really be into it, you are on the hook for essentially 3 sets of Gundam. And if it comes out and it just tanks and no one wants to buy it, guess what? you're buying 2 more sets of it, and or else your distributors, because I don't know, I work on the with my distributor, I think most people do if they're surviving the TCG business. You take what you ordered. You don't go back, because the last thing you want your distributor to be is mad at you, right? Because you didn't take your full allocation. And so you are swinging in the wind if it doesn't go well, right? And so it's wild to me that Bandai would not fulfill set 1 because they essentially made it so that I wouldn't order any of it. And that is the only time I have ever not taken allocations for a game. As I said, I will not take any more Gundam. I will not purchase it because you gave me 0 at the beginning. And I think other people have similar stories, which is crazy.
Yeah. And you know, what you said is spot on about how early you have to have everything ordered. So you can imagine how well Battle Spirit Saga went for stores when that came out, and that was Bandai's hot game where they were pushing $1 million, prize circuit or whatever, and the set 1 boxes within a month of release were down to $25 a box.
Yeah.
The game just absolutely crashed, and retailers they crashed before set 2 came out, and set 3 was already ordered at that point as well. Bandai also requires that you not just have your orders all set up that far in advance, but you have to have your events scheduled, like your pre-release events have to be scheduled on that time frame as well. So if you want to start getting Bandai products for the first time, you will be able to have, I think, basic weekly promos in about 2 or 3 months, and then start doing pre-releases 4 to 6 months later. And it's a ridiculous timescale that is totally, in my opinion, totally unnecessary given our communication methods today and how quickly we're able to manage everything. It is not every company needs to do it that way, which is all the evidence I need to know that that's not how it needs to be done for Bandai as well. But it is what it is. And also, just to add to Mike's story, if you even if you do run Bandai events, if you missed the short window to register for Gundam's launch events, you also didn't get anything, even if you are the premier Bandai store in your entire region who runs events for every other game. And I may sound like I'm speaking from experience, and it's because I am, but the Gundam launch was not a fun one for us either. And now set 2 is very plentiful, and I'm not sure where things are going from there. But the point I ultimately wanted to make was that despite the misgivings and the issues that we have, Bandai has one thing going for it, which is their IPs are unmatched, other than, I guess, League of Legends now.
Sure.
But the IPs are incredible, and the cards look really nice, and so they get a lot of players who are consistent. And I look at a game like One Piece, and One Piece isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's doing just fine. It's going to continue doing just fine, no matter how Bandai wants to run the other sides of things. So it's, you're going to basically, sorry, that was a tangent, but I think a fun one. But Bandai games are going to be ones you can always invest in, but there are games on the market that are more like the Flesh and Blood era that I also think, Flesh and Blood, experience that you get there I think there are also games that you would feel comfortable investing in, even though they're not the games that are selling insane amounts of boxes like Riftbound or One Piece or anything. And I am going to take just a moment to shill Grand Archive as well, because this is this is the only card game to survive Kickstarter and not ultimately flop. It has only grown since then. I just got back from the biggest tournament yet, which is a 700 player tournament in Japan. It's gathered a huge following in Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, and has a ton of North American, US players, Canadian players as well. And the reason that I talk about this is because Marty, you said what games are doing things right. I agree there are issues with Star Wars Unlimited, even though I love playing that game. I could play that game literally all day. I would never get bored of it. But there are games like Grand Archive who are growing and are small, but you look at what they do and everything is so focused on the experience, the players, the community, the product. Grand Archive has foils that don't curl. They don't curl. And every other company will tell you, they'll tell you that's not possible. and they're actually just wrong. Grand Archive has competitive circuits with cash. It has its own tournament software that isn't cardio, which cardio is the worst thing in the world. That's the one misstep Riftbound has so far, but hopefully they're just making their own right now. They have tournament software that works and tracks player rankings, and they send out player rewards every season, just like old Magic. There are games that you can find, smaller games that are going to do those things, and it's just about finding the ones where you can tell that I think the passion and the drive is there, and it's not just trying to make money off of people, but trying to actually build something.
All right, so we've talked about the Resurgence. Some of the games are doing it well and stuff. Let's try to pull out the crystal ball right here. Are we in a bubble? Is the bubble going to pop? What do you think the future looks like for the TCG market?
I want to hear from Mike first.
Yeah, we're in a bubble. I mean, but I think we're in a bubble. I don't know that it's the classic, like, this stuff is too expensive and inflated. I think it's more of a like manufactured FOMO kind of thing, right? Because games that are available, right, like Star Wars, I think you're looking at sort of modern retail, right? Like it's problems with modern retail where Star Wars is fine. It plays well. It's a good game, right? But nobody is frothing at the mouth to buy hundreds of boxes of Star Wars, right? Which means it's worthless, right? And that's kind of like the two. Your game is either the hottest thing imaginable and you cannot get it, right? And it blows out immediately, or it's worthless and the boxes crater immediately because LGSs are on this cycle because you're operating on such low margins that you're ordering $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of a card game, even if you're small, right? And so you're ordering all of this product, and if it's at all slow, if it's at all sluggish, you just can't afford to have that capital tied up in that game. So what you immediately do, and you're operating in a world where click of a button, all of it's gone. Now, you may not get what you want out of it, but it's at least 80%, 70%, or whatever, MSRP you could get. And so you're seeing more and more of that happening where, I think Avatar had happened, right? I think Avatar, The Last Airbender was the last Magic set, right? And Avatar was very strong at the beginning and sold very well. And I think still it continues to sell well, actually. And but it is not sold out. Therefore, boxes have cratered. They're almost right at cost, right? Like they're so cheap. And it is a good set. I don't think anybody would tell you looking at Avatar that it's bad, right? Because it plays very well. The cards are good. People enjoy it. It's a popular property. It's a good IP. People like it. But you're going to see this polarization, I think, more and more, where sets are either the hottest thing imaginable and the product goes to the moon, or it's worthless. And I think you see that with board games as well, because board games are either impossible to get and you cannot get them because, Shut Up and Sit Down did a video review of them and that made them, it's the hottest game imaginable and everybody wants it, or it sits on your shelf forever and you're blowing it out at 50% or 60% of cost, right? And so I think that you will see this happen more and more, I think, over the next year. I think especially with I'm very slanted toward Magic because I think most stores, their revenue is very tied up in Magic, and I think like you are essentially forced to take huge allocations of Magic because you need it, right? You're trapped onto a treadmill with Magic where once you're in, you can't go down. You can't buy less. You have to buy more and more and more and more, right? And that leads to people having tons of product that they have to liquidate. So I think next year, more sets equals 2 to 3 of those sets are just not going to blow out, and they're going to be dirt cheap. We were selling boxes of Spider-Man in my store for $80 a box on Black Friday. $80. And like, honestly, we didn't sell many of them, right? We sold tons of certain ones, but not Spider-Man. And like, I think it's only going to take a couple of those sets next year for that bubble to pop hard. And I think I mentioned this to Marty. I think this was the year, I think you said earlier, Dan, that this was like the most stressful summer ever. I think every LGS that was open was just like, oh my God, the money's raining from the sky. Everybody's crazy to buy things. And I think we've cooled a little bit toward the end of the year here. And I think there'll be bursts of super hot, they'll want a set, it'll sell out immediately. But I do think you're going to see a lot of stores that can't handle those swings have a lot of trouble next year because that bubble is going to pop, I think. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's impossible to look at the current market and think that it's just going to go forever. I mean, I guess you could do it, but that's, I think, pretty naive. There's obviously something is going to happen at some point because it doesn't make sense to continue to add new giant IP. The Cyberpunk TCG was just teased last week. That's another one coming out now. So anyone who's a fan of the CD Projekt Red game or the source material or whatever for Cyberpunk is now going to have to look at that game. It's impossible to just continue to add on game and game and game and game. And players have increasingly limited, I would even say right now, budgets to be able to spend on games. And Magic is trying to get them to buy 32 sets a year. and that's not accounting the secret layers that you were going to want to buy because you got to play your Dwight K. Schrute commander deck. But beyond...
He's serious. Yes, there's an Office secret layer set for Magic. So anyway, go ahead.
I made a joke when we opened the shop that I said by the end of 2025 you'll be able to equip Aunt May with a Buster Sword and attack, and I'm correct. You can do it right now in a game of Magic, which is silly, but
sorry to
yes. There. Yeah, no, that's fine. It's Magic's in an interesting time, but every company is competing already for everybody's wallets. There are great smaller games. There are IPs you love. There are games that your friends are playing, and so you want to play them too. And then there's new IPs and new games and new Kickstarters and new whatever coming out. And you just can't keep adding those on and have that market continue to support every single game that's in it. Now, I want to also sort of balance that with something I mentioned earlier, which is that this is the biggest market of TCG buyers we've ever had in the industry, period. So the one piece of wisdom that we have heard going back to that era you talked about, Marty, the 2008 era, was that card games will go for 1 to 3 years and die. If they make it past 3 years, then, well, actually 3 to 5 is sometimes said as well. But eventually, every TCG is going to die. And sort of like 99% of them are within 3 years, right? And I actually will, well, okay, I'll say that that's true if you count 99% as the Kickstarters that come out, because 99% of Kickstarters that come out are someone who had an idea and drew it in MS Paint, and it's not a serious like effort at adding to the TCG industry. It's just trying to create something that they're happy with or whatever, and they want to find like-minded people. But a lot of TCGs that come out now do have what it takes, if they do things correctly, to last a longer amount of time. And it's easy to look at the market and look at games that have been going on forever. Some of them, I don't know how, but games like Universes, Dragon Ball Super. There's a pile of games. Force of Will is actually still in print, technically, from what I understand, which is also kind of wild. But there are games that are able to kind of take it the distance and go for a pretty long period of time, and sometimes even thrive for a pretty long period of time. And Flesh and Blood really proved that that's possible even when you don't have a gigantic IP on your back, if you can hit the right timing, do things right. So I do think the bubble's going to burst, and I do think some of those games, even some of the ones that are doing well, might end up having to make some concessions at some point, and may even end up collapsing on themselves. But I also don't think it's entirely doom and gloom. And I think that it really just comes down to how these companies manage the games.
Cool. Well, guys, you got any last comments or anything that you want?
Yes.
Tony shows up at the last minute, y'all.
So let's rehash. I'm kidding.
Wow.
I am so sorry. I just jumped in there hoping it had been ended, but how hard is it to get a dinner out of spaghetti? That's all I'm asking. I mean, come on,
So
people.
unprofessional.
Don't even go there with me. I had it all timed out. Life was good.
Now I forgot my train of thought. So anyway, all right, we just talked about the future of the TCG market. Where everybody feels it's like, yeah, it's probably not going to maintain the momentum. But like you said, Dan, I hope that we don't have what happened in 2008 or so, where it feels like in 2008, TCG players said, I'm done with TCGs. I hope we don't experience that again. I hope that
I don't think we're going there.
Okay.
No, I just think like we're going to go out of this insane world where people pre-order things at 50% up markup over MSRP. I think like you'll get back to the world where you can buy boxes at a reasonable, discount over cost, and like, collector boosters will be somewhat expensive, but like, especially for Magic, this boom is like very recent. Like it's kind of started with Final Fantasy, and it kind of brought the Pokemon speculators over, but I don't think we're there forever. I also think like none of these games are going anywhere. I think they're what they're doing right now is they're accumulating huge number of players, which is great, right? Like I think if the prices go down, I mean, I think even Star Wars, like, which I would say is maybe the game that I'm the most bearish on. I think like it's super cheap to play it. Like it's incredibly cheap to be a Star Wars player. You buy like 3 boxes a week or 2 after release, and you're spending like $150. That's awesome. That's great for players, and cards are cheap. Like I think Luke, we sold a Luke on TCG Player the other day, and it was like $17. I remember when Luke was like $70, and so I mean it's a huge change. So the games are cheaper, which hopefully brings more players. I think they just need to survive. They need to figure out a way to make it work for retail. But I don't think they're going anywhere.
A lot of games just need to carve out their niche and perform their niche very well. Some of those games are like the Bandai games where their niche is just, does it have a picture of Monkey D. Luffy on it? Then it's really good. So good job. And some games need to fight a little harder. And I think Star Wars is a game that does need to fight a little harder. Star Wars as an IP just isn't quite as salient in 2025 as it was in the late 90s. But it's also got a lot of people now viewing shows on Disney Plus, and there's plenty of fans out there of the IP. It's just that they kind of, for some reason, they have so many demons that they're fighting from the past as well. So they really need to continue to do great things with their product line, which I think could use a little bit of a rework. And make sure their organized play is hitting and everything. But we saw at Galactus this year, there were 2,000 people there. I mean, like, it's not that the players aren't there.
That's absolutely the right kind of failing, is all I'm saying. Like when people are playing the game, you're doing all right. So. Yeah.
So as long as these games find their niche, do it well, make themselves stand out in the market, you're going to get, basically, you need to make sure you have people who say, I am invested in X because they do Y the way I like it. And once a game no longer has a significant Y for people to name, then it's going to start to fade out.
Yeah. I will say this, Mike, if you ever get any more of those 4-player Riftbound starter boxes in, hold me one and I'll take one.
Those things,
Good luck.
that is like the one gripe I have with them. And again, it's all due to like, oh no, people want to buy your stuff, right? But like, God, man, print more starters. What are we doing? Like,
yeah,
you've exclusive cards in the starters, and like they just disappeared. We got 8 of them. 8 of them. It was like, what? How is this ever enough, right?
It's so weird. It's like, what's the perfect way to try to get? Well, just buy the starter set. Great. Yeah, you can't get that.
No, you can't get this.
The product was one of the best I've ever heard of.
It's incredible.
Designed for the market. Yeah. It's just that they needed to print literally 10 times or more the amount that they printed for it to succeed at what it set out to do.
Yeah, I could have sold hundreds of those. No problem. Like every player that wants it.
I did pre-sell hundreds of them, but I didn't get them.
Yeah. All right. Well, amazing discussion, guys. Like, I've always been passionate about the TCG games, the TCG space, and Mike, I'm always in there. I like hearing what goes on behind the scenes. I like getting to the business stuff.
Sure.
I just think it's just very interesting to me about why a game succeeds, why they don't succeed, who does it right, why the resurgence and all this, which is why I was excited to have this discussion with you. So before we go, Tony, do you have one last question you want to ask these guys that's just been burning your brain, even though we may have talked about it?
I'm not going to do that to the audience. I can't wait to listen to this episode because I'm sure, I know Marty went back to our history and what started this whole freaking podcast that we've had for as many years as we've had. And it's just, we've seen the demise of many of these games. So we're really pulling for the new one, Star Wars. We love it. And we hope they continue with it because we know believe it or not, age and experience do count for something. And some of the ones, you can't knock the jargon off. You can't knock magic it off, but figure out what failed. There's plenty of examples of that, from even Dragon Ball and Yu-Gi-Oh! And those kinds of things. Wait
a minute. You said those didn't fail.
I know, but what I'm saying, those continued, but are they at the same level as they were in the pre?
Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the number 3 selling. See, he missed all this, guys. It was the number 3 selling game in Q3.
Why? There's no comic behind it anymore. There's no,
it's been around for decades.
Doesn't need it. It keeps going, man.
Yeah.
I know.
Yep.
And what's the secret sauce? What's behind that? What makes it the Mac rib,
Right now, the secret sauce is designing terrible sets that are $30 on the market. I don't know why it works, but it does.
Designing boxes that come out and are immediately under cost.
Yeah.
I think we got a set in one time. The first Yu-Gi-Oh! Set we ordered like 3 cases of it. And I was like, I don't know, let's see. And by the time it came in, it was $5 under cost on TCG Player. And I was like, wow, cool. This is great. What a great game. And, that's it. We kind of stopped carrying it. But I think from, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I think they're so much better now. Is like from a gameplay perspective, every single game that I play, every one of these new TCGs is miles ahead. I played Wyvern and Rage and like those games were not good. I know that the Rage people don't come for me, right? Like I played Rage. It was fun, but it's not a good game. Like it was terrible. All of the games now, even like the ones that I think are simpler, like Lorcana and things like that, they're great compared to what they were. So
Don't worry, Mike. Overpower's back.
yeah, Overpower. Yeah, good Lord. Like why?
I have thoughts, but
Yeah. So I think just the quality of the games are so much better now.
Yeah,
They're just so much better.
What's the one sitting in your basement, Marty? We commented on during our mini Star Wars tournament. The Western one, which you and I enjoyed.
Oh, Doomtown.
Doomtown.
Yeah, but that wasn't a CCG. That version was an LCG. Now, you're talking about Kickstarters. A year and a half, 2 years ago, I kickstarted the Warlords from the early 2000s. They were releasing that. I never played, so I was like, I totally forgot I backed that. So I'm going to be getting some of that.
I like that game actually. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that game's good.
All right, so
what I heard was the quality of the games has gotten better. So there you go.
Yeah, and if y'all wonder why Tony's mic sounds weird, is because he doesn't have his right mic turned on. So
I've selected the right mic.
Anyway, he sounds weird. All right, so before we get out of here, Dan, where can people find you?
Thank you, Marty. Main Deck is my channel. I go by Main Deck Games everywhere. So if you just go to any place and type at Main Deck Games, you'll probably find me. I tweet a lot. Actually, I tweet a decent amount about card games. So head over to Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And I'm over there as well.
And I need to try Grand Archive. I don't know anybody around me that plays it, but I think the graphic design on that game just looks absolutely amazing. I'm a big anime fan, so I like that style anyway. So look at that. That's just gorgeous.
You ain't gonna get me on that one.
That's gorgeous. And
Everyone's got their own.
Mike, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I run, as Marty said earlier, I run a board game cafe in Charlotte, North Carolina, called To The Table Board Game Cafe. You can find us at tothetable.game, and we sell board games there. You can also find Siggles on Manapool TCG Player. So.
Yeah, and it is my now favorite local game store, everybody. It's like he has great prices. He says, hey, look, I try to stay competitive, and 100% he is. So I pre-order stuff from there, play events there. So it is my go-to store. And I've gotten in fact, Mike, I had a friend I've got into Star Wars Unlimited travel like 35 minutes down to come see you on Black Friday because of the great sales that you are having.
He was super nice, yeah.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
We also have beer and wine, and that helps a lot. So
Yes. That always helps. Well, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I think this was an amazing discussion, and maybe we'll follow up in a year or something. It's like, all right, what do we predict that was correct? Maybe what's hot in you right now. And just, I love keeping my pulse on this industry because I think it's super exciting to follow.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Doesn't have to be a year, Marty. Call anytime. Happy to join again.
same
Nice.
here.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Hey there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you liked today's episode, why not check out Dice Will Roll, the queerest Pathfinder show on the planet? Join a crew of 4 friends asking you the important questions about RPGs, like, is it cannibalism to eat a polymorph chicken? From getting 4 nat 1s to the roll to standing up to the darkest forces in the multiverse, Dice Will Roll is available wherever you get your podcasts.